And there we are. It is time to go.
Yes, it is.
We're done.
Bye.
Hey, Brian, how you doing today?
I am feeling great. How are you, Richard?
It's Sunday.
Did your shot hurt?
Yeah. For those of you who didn't miss the announcement, number 1 is done. So, I'm in a very good mood.
Okay, so you're in a good mood. I'm in a good mood. Jared's in a good mood. Nobody's yelling at anybody, and we've got lots of people in the chat today. We did start later because Brian had to go get a shot today.
The scheduling up here is all over the map, guys. So I found out like yesterday afternoon that I could pop in today, basically. So I'm like, yes, jump on it.
There you go. I messed up this week. I messed up big time. I have a show that was all ready to go.
Oh, no.
And guess what I forgot to put up for our members on Friday and then release on Saturday?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I forgot to do that. I had so many things
going
on here.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
I didn't release a video this week.
That's okay. I've been shooting a lot of footage for my next video here. I had a very, very bumpy, interesting week with this next project, but oh boy, the results are worth it. So stay tuned for that.
Well, let's first go ahead and run this for all of our members, which I believe is up to date. All of our members that are part of our members group, thank you very much. It's for people like you that help to keep this show going each and every week. And we want to thank you for that. Doesn't matter what layer you're at or what level you're at.
Just
it all helps.
3D Jeff here. Hello from Indiana. First time catching the show live. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And,
welcome.
We set the show at noon just because it's middle of the day. But, if this time works better for a lot of people, we're always flexible. So, let us know in the chats what your thoughts are.
Well, here's one thing. I set it for 2, and then YouTube set it for 3. Because I'm showing that it's scheduled for 3 o'clock.
Oh, so, YouTube.
Thanks. You've done this to me so many times. With a company
that big, they could figure out time zones. We have a lot of problems with the Alberta time zone here with daylight savings time and all that. Technically, we are under mountain time. We still abide by the rule changes of daylight savings time for now. We'll see how that changes in the future. But yeah, it is quite difficult, especially when you're scheduling with people with central time as they're starting to get rid of daylight savings time. It's a big mess, guys.
Now, we first have to clear up some things that didn't happen last week that we should have gotten, but we didn't get. But our first question comes from Jim Smith, which all you guys know as Snapshot FPV. He may not be in the room because he's probably going to come in at 3. But he wanted to know about bed leveling when it came to doing the resin printer that he has. He has an LD-002R.
Okay.
And he seems to be having problems with bed adhesion. So he's asked here if he should level his bed on the actual glass or should he do it in the vat. Now,
that's a great question. People don't ask that enough, honestly.
According to the way that Creality says to do it, they want you to take the vat off, put a piece of paper between the build plate and the actual projector. So you're going to do that. You're going to bring it right down. You're going to take your fingers and you're going to apply just a little bit of pressure to the top of that plate once it's found its home. Then you're going to tighten all 4 screws, and I suggest tightening them in an X pattern. Once you've done that, your bed should be level. Raise it up, put your vat back on it, put your material in it, and away you go. Now, that is the proper way to do it. The other problem you may be having may not be a bed level issue. It may be how long is your material curing. Because if it doesn't cure long enough on those first few layers, it won't stick to the bed. Okay?
Yeah. And there's a couple different games to play out there with this. My personal opinion, I actually do like to apply a bit of that PFTE spray to the FEP liner when it's all clear and dry, and then wipe that across, because at the end of the day, you don't want stuff to stick to the FEP. You want the build plate to be more desirable. So things like the Wham Bam magnetic sheets, they work amazingly so far from my playing with them. You can go that route, but at the end of the day, you have to make that surface more appealing than the FEP film. And most times more than not, it's actually the FEP film is being too sticky. So there's a couple things out there. I don't have any up here right now, but I think WD-40 makes a PFTE dry spray. So what I'll do is I'll take some of that and spray it on paper towel, and then wipe it right across your film a couple of times, let it sit for 10-15 minutes, and then take a dry piece of paper towel and give it another wipe over. And the idea is it's going to look a little cloudy, I won't lie to you, but at the end of the day, wiping it is going to make that a bit of a smoother surface with a PFTE finish. And if you know PFTE tubes here, how kind of smooth they are to the finger touch, now imagine resin trying to cure to that. Now, as Richard said, it doesn't hurt to have a longer first layer curing time. I do 60 seconds, 75 seconds sometimes.
Yeah, me
just
too.
to get that first establishment in there. And you want to listen for that crisp pop when you're doing those first few layers. If you want to lift it even higher, sure, you can go ahead and do that. But just make sure you hear that pop. And by the time you've done that, there's a good chance that the resin's going to be more desirable to cure to itself than it is to the FEP film underneath.
Exactly.
And it is all about layer times. So I've been playing with a mono printer lately, and those layer times are like 2 seconds. And I'll post the video to Facebook a little later on there, but you'll just see in 2 seconds you lift it up, you hear the pop, goes down, and you can get that thing going quite rapidly too. So that the first layer when it comes to resin is all about making that film undesirable.
Happy belated birthday, Richard. Thank you very much from Greg's Vintage Workshop. I do appreciate
took the
that.
week off, eh?
Well,
oh my gosh, we have
unintentionally,
city, guys. Like the weather swings up here. The best, unfortunately, I can only describe it in centigrade for you guys there. But we've had in the last 24 hours a 30 degrees Celsius swing, and I think that went from about 74 this morning. It was 25. Give or take.
I think so. Yeah.
So it was really aggressive on the Fahrenheit scale here. So it's been kicking our butts. Radmaster saying use Rain-X. I haven't tried that one, but I've heard a lot of good things. That's actually, maybe I'll give that a try because I do have a clean vat and I'm waiting to do some work on it. And we have a Canadian Tire right behind me that sells the Rain-X spray there. But basically any kind of lubricant spray. And at the end of the day, just, if it's too cloudy, your prints might come out a little deformed.
Yeah.
So you want to find that perfect balance of creating a little film layer. The last thing I want to tell you about resin, just from my experience, is use a couple pieces of electrical tape on the sides of your screen to give it just a slight vertical gap. And the reason you do that is when you slide your vat in and out, then it's actually applying pressure to the tape and not scratching your screen. I've seen some really terrible scratch screens lately that would have been resolved with, a couple inches of tape.
Yeah,
so there's your pro tip for the week, guys.
All right, so we've got Raymond Cleveland here. He says, hi all, thanks for all your help earlier today. You're very welcome, sir. That's my brother, in case anybody doesn't recognize the last name. He lives in Saskatchewan, so we're a province away from each other. So our next question...
I'm going to mispronounce your last name here, Bill. Bill Minasian? Is that would be right? First time here, guys. Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you, Bill. Welcome to the...
Pleasure to meet you as well. Henry says his birthday was on Friday. Sorry, Henry, I missed it. I did talk to you earlier this week, though. Happy birthday. Everybody say happy birthday to Henry.
Happy birthday, Henry. I will eat one of my delicious jelly-filled donuts I just picked up at Safeway in your honor.
Shut up.
That's why you book your prescriptions at a really good, or your shots at a good grocery store, because you have to hang around for 15 minutes afterwards. I brought back so many packages of cookies. I didn't know they made like mini egg cookies this year. They made caramel cookies. I was like, oh, come on, guys.
That's because they have the pharmacy right by the bakery.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So we've got a couple more questions, and this next question is related to what I have on the table here. This comes from Pedro Ballester, one of our longtime members. He says, can you discuss upgrading the original board on an SK or an SKR or with an SKR 32-bit? This is related to the CR-10S board upgrade. Which model would you recommend? Can I still use an original LCD screen? Let's first start. I'm going to go to my overhead camera here. If we lose Brian, I'll bring him back. Here we go.
He's like, oh,
there we go.
Win there, right?
So this is a typical ramps board. Some of you guys that have been in the community for quite some time will recognize this setup. This is how 3D printers were built control-wise back in the day. Now, this is no longer the de facto standard. Here you can see we've got our step sticks right here. We've got the X, Y, Z, and E1 as well. You can see we've got 2 ports for our monitor. These were stacked on top of a ramps board, or pardon me, a Arduino Mega. And
2560, I think, too. Actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
And this particular board is 8-bit. This is how we all got started in 3D printing. This board now is an antique, really. If you look at the way machines are built today, this is an antique and it's antiquated. So if you're going to build anything new, don't put one of these in.
Though that being said, that board is fundamentally the same as the Creality stock boards, like this one you're just bringing up right now. It's just they got a few more components on the board. So it's not so much they're obsolete as they're just plenty of other better offerings on the market.
This is a much better board in comparison to what they've been doing. Now, this again is still an 8-bit board. This is the version that came in the Ender 3. So again, it's only 8-bit. It's not a very powerful board. It's still using the Atmega 2560 chip. And really, at the end of the day, this is kind of antiquated technology as well. 8-bit, yes, it's still being used, but it's slowly being phased out. Now, we move to this board, which is the Big Tree SKR E3 DIP version 1.1. Here are our step sticks. We only have 4 of them. We have all of the necessary add-ons that we need. We even have a place to put our BL Touch. But you're going to notice here that there's only one monitor cable. So in a CR-10S, if you are going to upgrade the board, whether it be to this one or possibly this guy right here, which is a version 1.3, SKR 1.3 or 1.4, the one thing that you're going to have to bear in mind is where are all the screw holes. This particular board will fit directly into the spot where your existing board is for your Creality machine. The hole patterns line up perfectly. This one does not, so you're going to have to make a bracket. Now, that being said, there's plenty of brackets out there.
Yeah, but that dip is the best one to put on Creality machines there. The only thing to keep as a note, especially when you're dealing with CR10s, is, and I believe it's the fan header. One of the fan headers, you actually do have to crimp on a connector because it was loose leads before. Yeah. And you only need a motor splitter. But if we want to switch over to both of us here, I can show the ribbon things, just so there seems to be a lot of questions about these ribbons. So this is the TFT35 screen from Big Tree Tech, which is the drop-in replacement, if you will, for most Creality screens. Unfortunately, I don't have the original with me right now, but basically it's the same as the Creality one, but it's got a lot more connectors. But what I wanted to focus on is these 3 at the top. Now, with the exception of like the first-ish generation of the CR10, they should all come with 3 connectors. And so there's they should be labeled. I don't know if we can see it here. EXP1, 2. Oh yeah, it's coming through terribly. Sorry guys. So this one right here is EXP1, middle one's EXP2, and the final one's EXP3. Depending on which screen you program into your Marlin configuration, you can program it to either use the 2 ribbon cables that go to EXP1 and 2, and they go to the same points on your board, or you can actually, I've got an SKR-13 here, that's also 1 and 2, but the E3, which is buried a little over here as I'm doing some motor tests, this one here just has the single one, and that's used for EXP3. So
Correct.
I don't want to go into the hyper details right now, but basically in Marlin you use CR10_display if you're just using EXP3, or you use the RepRap, discount, smart, full control, I can't remember the exact verbiage of it, for the double ribbon. Is there any real benefit in going with the 2 versus the 1? Not really. Back in the day, there was a little bit of leveraging of using the connector as a pulse output for the BL Touch, where you had to use that I/O to trigger that instead of the onboard buzzer that I conveniently ripped off this one because I was tired of hearing it. Yeah, there's actually nothing to it. I would recommend most people go over to EXP3 and use the CR10. And then, of course, if you're using all the smart features of screens like this, you're actually going to use one of these connectors up here for a serial port connection back to your main board. But yeah, the upgrade to a 32-bit is disturbingly easy these days, and thanks to companies like Big Tree for making a board that is a drop-in replacement for these otherwise non-configurable systems. You know, we've been getting spoiled with this, but I won't lie, like I got a Mingda unit right now, and it's an OEM motherboard, and it's there. I'd basically have to yank it out and throw it away and replace it if it dies. So it's good that at least, you know, there's a bit.
Well, you can order another one from Mingda.
I could, but then I'm, you know.
Well, what fun is that?
Sorry?
What fun is that?
Yeah, exactly. I do like to modify my machines. Fact is, any 3D printer out there, you can actually modify to work with basically any motherboard. You know, I like the Big Tree stuff because they expose all the I/O and everything's open source, so you can pull all the information. But I've used these on pretty much every printer in the house. Even if I'm building my own machine, it just works. So
the short answer is, I would go. I would go with an SKR E3 or the SKR. What is the other? The Mini.
Yeah, the Mini 2.0 or the E3 DIP 1.1.
Yeah.
If you get into the SKRs like the 1.3, the 1.4, the Turbo, the Pro, they won't be drop-in replacements. And I think they have that new one, that RRF board that people have talked about. I haven't tried it yet, so I can't speak on that.
Yeah, me either.
The reason I pushed people to buy the DIP boards, which is this one here, is because I don't like this, you know, built in from the factory stepper design. To be honest with you, I have blown stepper drivers before. So if you blow this guy below here, and you're not, you know, if you're not sitting on a hot rework station like me and all that, this board becomes junk for you. You got to throw it out because there's no way to fix it. Whereas the DIP board, if you fry the stepper, it's at most maybe $15 to just buy a new chip, plug it in, and you're back in business.
And that's all there is to it. Just take out the stepper and pop it back in.
Yeah. And you know what? This is, again, I'm probably giving Big Tree too much credit today, but when you buy Big Tree steppers, number one, you can see the rows are red and black, and if you look at the chip, the pin headers are red and black.
Yep.
So it's pretty much idiot-proof. You plug it in, and it just starts working.
Okay.
Because don't
we got to move on.
Yeah, I know.
We got to move on.
Okay, so
we got
3D Jeff has a couple of questions here, so I'm just going to stick them in between a bunch of other ones.
Sure,
all right, so he said, question, my extruder is varying speed. Noticed it last night while calibrating the E-steps. Not skipping, it just slows down for 2 or 3 seconds, not pausing, slows down, then speeds back up for 10 to 15 seconds. And that's just extruding material, like when you're adjusting the E-steps?
I know in Marlin there is a feature called slowdown, which if the buffer gets empty, it slows down, but
when you're just
slowing it down.
When you're just extruding, it should be a constant. It shouldn't slow down or speed up.
No, exactly.
You may have a problem with a step stick on your E-calibration. And I've seen that before, where a step stick is getting the proper voltage, but at the end of the day, there's a disconnect that is happening here. So it's not getting all the voltage it needs, so it slows down. Or the other thing is that it's overheating. If it is overheating, you may have a problem. So good thing to do is check to see if it's not overheating. If it's not overheating, then check the step stick itself. Make sure the voltage is set correctly. All right, so that one's done. Brian had to be right back, so I'm on my own. That's okay, I can answer questions. What's our next one, Jerry? I'm having a really hard time getting my DaVinci 1.0 AIO to work with my Simplify 3D software. It shows connected, but won't find file to printer. I've never been a big fan of the connected PC to your printer, regardless of whatever slicer you're using. I find it to be cumbersome. I don't like the way that it transmits data. So as far as, do you have to use a computer with it, Bill? Because if you don't, I would just put it onto an SD card, slick that SD card right inside your printer, and go ahead and do it that way. I'm not sure why you're having problems there with the AIO, but I've never found the AIOs to be very reliable. Jerry's got another one.
Oh.
From Max CJ1234, I just got my RRF, just waiting for the wire ferrules kit. So far the board is good, quality. Going to try RepRap to see what the hype is all about. So that's cool, awesome. Let us know how that turns out for you, absolutely. Okay. One pot for steppers. Okay, it was already set to 792 millivolts. It is a 3.5-year-old A8. First time connected to a PC was Saturday. It all started when I changed belts, ran through, so I changed back to the old ones. Now the new ones, are they exactly the same belt? Because you can get different toothed belts, so you have to watch that, and that could have been your problem. And 792 millivolts, that almost seems kind of high on the stepper pot. Almost seems kind of high. I guess it could go to 800 millivolts. I believe they can go up to 800. Try dropping that a little bit and see what happens, Jeff. All right, so we are doing good so far. What else have we got there, Jerry?
Oh.
You got to be on your toes today, lady.
Yeah, this 3D Jeff has lots of questions.
Okay, well, let's keep going. 3D Jeff is going to have to use our super chat down at the bottom. He's got so many questions today. Well, I already read this one.
Okay, wait. I keep telling you when I go in and out, it disappears.
You know what? It's a Sunday. Whoa, look at that frame rate, guys.
Okay, so he's working over USB to calibrate. Since flashing with the Uni 2, I have a menu on the printer screen, but I push the menu center button and it goes to options.
I don't know anything about Uni 2.
I'm not familiar with Uni 2 either, but at the end of the day, I would be using Pronterface. If I'm doing any kind of calibrating, I use Pronterface. I don't use a slicer. Brian?
Yeah, Pronterface is good because it just kind of deals with all the negotiation and your discussions. I mean, you can use Putty and a serial console to do the same thing, but Pronterface is just that much more verbose for dialing things in.
Yeah. I would like you to document this 3D Jeff and send it to Richard, or not send it to Richard, send it to questions at thefirstlayer.com, and we'll have a deeper look into it for you. So I would package this all up and send it to us in an email at questions, and we'll have a look at it for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have Greg Gillum from Greg's Vintage Workshop sent me an email this week. And just so happens I have the same printer going right here that just stopped.
Woohoo.
The one upstairs just stopped before I came down.
Oh, there we go. Got it off. Hear that snap?
Nice and clean.
Yes, this is nice and clean, actually. We're going to have a look at this right away. But he says, good afternoon, Richard and Brian. So my Ender 3 Pro presents to the front when it finishes a print. The new Rock 3 Pro presents it to the rear, which is kind of a pain in the way I have the printer situated. Is there any way to make it present to the front when the print completes? I assume it is something in the G-code and must be backwards. What needs to be changed and what's the correct, is this anomaly? I will tell you from my own experience that it usually will go to the back when you finish printing, but if you're using Cura, and I'm going to go over to the desktop here so you guys can see the desktop. Okay, let me get rid of that. Okay, so we're here on the desktop. Hopefully you guys can see that. Right now we have a BL Touch. Let me go to the Mingda Rock 3/Pro, and you can see that we've got the Rock 3 right here. What you want to do is you want to go into Manage Your Printers, and where it says Machine Settings, that's where we're going to have a look. Now, it is important, now I'm kind of off screen here, it is important that when we are looking through this, I'm going to open this up a little bit so we can see exactly what we're doing. Alright, so we can see over here on the NG code, and we'll see exactly what it says here. Your G1, 0, F3000, move Z up a little. This is going to bring the Z gantry up. Secondly, it's a G90 absolute position. The Y, this is the one that you want to change. So it should be G1, X0, Y200, F1000, space, semicolon, prepare for part removal. That's the line that you need, and it will push that bed to the front just like it did to mine. So that's the line that you have to change, is that G1, X0, Y200, F1000, space, semicolon, prepare for part removal.
It actually looks like you've got one a bit further down there too that moves the Y even more once the extruder and bed's turned off. So it moves to X0 Y200 and then it moves X0 Y300. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, I didn't write the code, I just downloaded it.
Yeah, it just came with it. If we hop over to my screen, I can show you guys where it is in Prusa Slicer, because that's my primary slicer these days.
I gotta get it on the right, gotta get the mouse on the right screen.
World problems we have here, right?
Yeah.
All right, so here's Prusa Slicer on my end here, and it's usually a per printer setting. So if we go into printer settings in the top there, and we go over to this custom G code, now you'll see we have all our different machines. You can write custom G code for each printer. My NG code in this case, it just has turn off temperature, home the X-axis, and then disable the motors. And you know, a lot of them seem to disable the motors so that you can go and just slide the bed out as you feel, but all I have to do is add a Y0 here, and it's going to home it to its home position in X and Y without touching the Z. Now if you want to go to the back of your bed, you're going to want to add a command like we saw with Richard's there, which is G0 by either the length of the bed if you want to have the bed all the way to the front, so let's say 300, or if you want to go to the back, you would do Y0. So if it's going there, there's a fair chance they're just using the G28 command to home X and Y, but you can just go and add your own line after that and say, yeah, just move it to the position you want and then shut down the machine. And then that will happen with every print job generated by the slicer. So it's not the machine, it's not the firmware, it's just G code.
That almost sounds like a bad date. It's you. It's not us, it's you.
Isn't that how this whole 3D printing community works?
I think so. I think
it's not the printer, it's you.
It's you. All right, I want to go back to the overhead for a second because this just came off of the Rock 3, so I'm just going to cut to that. And this is the cube that I just did. And this is kind of, for those that are wondering what's coming up, this is something that you guys are going to really like. So this is the sample cube from the Voron. Now, on the x-axis, it looks pretty good. Like, I don't have any ghosting. My layer lines are pretty consistent, you know, as far as the layers go. The corners are nice and sharp. We have a nice little sharp X with no ghosting. But when we turn it over to this side, we have a little bit of ghosting, and the light might not be catching it. Let me see if I can get another light in here. Okay, this one's almost dead, so if it shuts off, you guys are going to see this. So you can see we've got ghosting on the Y. So I've got some tuning to do on the Y side of my printer. So we can see there's that Y ghosting off the edge. So I've got a little bit of work to do there. And then we look at the Z, which is, this is the Z right here. And I'm a little too close. I can actually back off a little bit because I can see that it's lifting a little bit on this top layer. So that, and what that's from is when you're too close, your nozzle will grab that previous layer, and there the light went out. Hey, wait a second. Pull out the
cell phone camera, man.
No, do this. There we go. All right. Where's our best light? Right there.
That is a nice shadow right there.
Nice shadow.
Yeah.
Let's do this. The trials and tribulations of my day. All right. So you can see where it's lifted a little bit here, and you can see that as I go across with this pointer, that it actually rides up on top. And that's because I'm a little too close to the bed. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments, but other than that, we can see a little bit of ghosting right here, which I couldn't pick up when we didn't have the light as good, but the rest of it doesn't look too bad. So it's on the Y that I'm having the biggest issue, right here. So that's something I'm going to have to fix. But this is what a cube will do for you. It's going to tell you a lot about how your machine is tuned. And I do have a little bit of work to do on this one, but what I have noticed is that I don't have a lot of Z wobble anymore, which I had before. And I don't have the Z wobble. Now I just have to slow things down so I can get rid of that and get rid of that. Okay? So hopefully that helped you guys.
Now, where can we find that cube? That's the first time I've seen that one, and I like that a lot better than the chip.
Well, this cube comes with all of the STLs for the Voron. Okay. This will be in your test file. And I really like this. And you're wondering why I did a Voron cube? I did a Voron cube because at the end of the day, oh, geez, now I got lights flashing. On,
yeah, you're strobing worse than I am over here.
At the end of the day, there's enough for those other damn cubes around the house with the benchies and just put them in a bucket.
Fucking vases, man. I started filling up a room with vases just for fun.
So, you know, while I look at this cube, at the end of the day, this is the cube for the Voron. That's what we're going to start building here this week. If all of my steel comes in, I got some of it. I didn't get the rest of it.
Oh, you got some of it, eh?
I did. It showed up yesterday, oddly, which it wasn't scheduled to show up till Monday.
Oh my gosh. Weird. Well, see, I had a hectic day. For those of you who don't know what happened on my weekend here, I had a part come in for one of my printers that I was excited to install. You know, I spent extra money to get shipped really fast. It still took forever with DHL. It got here, I installed it, and then I found out that my particular model had a slight incompatibility that wouldn't make it work. So I evaluated my options, and I bought another one of the same machine that had a slightly newer motherboard, and it's working. So now I've got two of this particular machine. But it's going to make some really cool stuff for you guys coming up. That's why I'm not telling you anything, but holy smokes.
All right.
That's all I can say. Holy mackerel, as they used to say in the 90s.
As they used to say in the 90s. Well, I never said that in the 90s, but that's okay.
You never said holy mackerel?
Nope.
Maybe that was a Disney thing. I don't know.
All you young kids.
Yeah.
We just swore like sailors, that's all. My
I
generation.
still swear like a sailor. Oh my gosh.
All right, so here, Emmanuel Monari. I hope I got that right. I have a clog problem on my ANET A8, bought with a lot of improvement, like Bowden extruder. After investing hours to set up mechanics and calibrate steps, now starts to lose E-steps and ends in a clog. That's
not a clog. That is heat creep.
That's heat creep. Yep.
So I'm gonna try and see if I can pull up a photo here on. I stole my father-in-law's thermal camera recently, so I know I've got some photos on here that actually show a bit of the heat on those nozzles. Let's see what we got here. You know, this is a pretty good one. And if you're a member and you've seen our infill video lately, it has this photo in there. So here is a hot end. Oh, you know, I apologize. I realized I forgot I have this color filter on me right now. No wonder it all looks weird. Give me 5 seconds, guys. I was playing around with LUT modifiers there. There we go. Oh, nope. That's should be good now. All right, let's see if we can actually see colors this time. There we go. All right, so there is a thermal view of a nozzle that I had just finished torching to melt everything out. This is the now discontinued Triangle Lab Dragon hot end there. But what you can see is we've got a nice hot block down at the bottom, roughly around 169 degrees, or up to 215, give or take there. And then on the, going up there, it gets a little bit darker, and then at the very top, it's a dark blue, which means it's only about 20 degrees. So what happens is, if your fan is not effectively cooling that region going through the center, you're going to have heat slowly creeping up through those areas. And the reason we don't like to do that is because filament, especially PLAs, they soften once you go above 60 degrees. And if your cooling's ineffective, as it softens, it's going to swell. And especially in all metal hot ends, or even in Bowden hot ends, when it swells, sometimes it jams and prevents it from moving forward. So you may think, oh, yeah, my printer's clogged or whatever. You leave it sitting for 20 minutes on cool down, you heat it back up, and it flows as if there's no clog. And you said, well, how is that possible? This is why. This is how heat creep manifests itself.
Yep.
Whether it is an under extrusion or a complete stop to extrusion, it'll print perfectly fine for the first few minutes, but as that heat starts to build up, then it's going to creep upwards, the fan cannot cool it effectively, and that building and building causes it to create that scenario. And then once you stop it and it starts to cool down, then your filament constricts a little bit, and the blockage is no longer there. So it sounds to me like you may have a bad fan, or you may have an under-spec'd fan, or the airflow is not being directed perfectly onto that. So it's going to depend on what hot end you have, what fan you've installed on there. We like to use Sunons. Yep. Don't use the Noctuas. I love Noctua, but the reduced airflow really brings you closer to that heat creep threshold. So you may be successful or may not. The Sunons provide about 30% more airflow than stock fans, and they'll get that air moving across there. So that's all I can give advice for that is check the fan, pop it off, make sure there's no dust buildup blocking it, and make sure that you don't have any filament that's weeped up somehow and is actually blocking your heat break from effectively cooling.
That can be a very big problem, and that's something I want to warn you guys about, that if you are retracting too far up into the block or through the block, you can get that cooled in the actual throat, and if it cools in the throat, you're never going to do it, get it unclogged unless you take that fan off, heat it up to about 250, and then push all that nonsense through. Then you're going to run into the issue where you've got breakdown of the PTFE liner that is in that heat break. And when that happens, you're just going to continually get clogs. Now, based on what you said with things, your extruder slowing down, that again could be a problem with your electronics. So it could be a bad step stick, or a step stick that's wearing out. It could be voltage issues. There's a great many things that could be going on here. But first and foremost, I would check to make sure that your traction is not too high and that you're getting good airflow across the heatsink, and you're getting proper airflow across your part cooling. Okay?
Yeah, it's a tough balance, and as I was mentioning there, if you are part of the first layer group here and you're subscribed to the info level or higher, my tip this week was about torching your nozzle and how to do it properly. PFTE liners do throw a wrench into that, but if you have all metal hot end, one of the nice benefits of those is you can disconnect all of your wires, take it outside with a blowtorch, and heat the whole thing up to the melting point of whatever your filament is. And if you actually take it beyond that, eventually it actually starts to spit out the nozzle. But at the end of the day, you will have that hot end back to right when it was delivered to you. You should be able to actually see a pinhole light out through the nozzle, and that sometimes that is required if you get a bad enough heat creep. I had a $90 hot end, and I wasn't about to throw it out. So
before I get to the next question, I've got one here from Dean. Dean Hines. He says, just picked up a new Ender 3 V2 for $237. Awesome.
Nice.
He says, I've updated the firmware to 2.0. Can I load manual bed leveling? Yes.
Yeah. Now, what you got to know about the Ender 3 V2 is, and Richard might know this better than me, I think it's a Wins V2 screen or something.
Yeah.
It's not tethered to the printer anymore. Now, when I talk about that, what I mean is when you had screens like this and we use the ribbon cables at the top, that's what I call tethered mode. That's when everything that's drawn on the screen is actually generated by this board. Now, when you go into the smart modes of these and you're just using the serial ports there, that is when it's on its own independent mode. So it doesn't go and have everything drawn by the main board. So if the main board crashes, this screen still works. And what I've found is I've had a lot of issues with filament runout sensors with that way, so I still like to stick to the ribbon tethered method there. But if you're adding features like manual bed leveling, what I wanted to get at is make sure it's compatible with working with those screens. Because even though you enable a feature in Marlin, it may not be available as a menu option within the screen because the screen runs its own processor, it runs its own firmware, images, everything.
Yep.
Now, it is getting much more open source, but I haven't gone near it with a 10-foot pole. I've got too many other issues to sort out first. But if you're going that route, just make sure, look up the latest firmware, the Wins firmware that someone else has designed with all the features, and then make sure to add those features into Marlin. That's about all I can tell you for that.
Now, for all of you that are out there, and I've gotten a few questions this week about Mingda printers and not being compatible with Cura. That is totally false. It is compatible with Cura.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have profiles for the latest version, which is 4.8. Now, 4.9, they have announced that they are including a set of profiles from a community member. So, being Cura is open source, these are open source profiles, and I actually printed this cube using that profile in 4.8, and in all honesty, I think it worked great. Let's see how fast that was going.
Basically, what you guys need to know is that with the exception of a few top tier OEMs, generally every printer right now is Marlin G-code or RepRap G-code compatible. So there are certain features. For instance, a great example is WeDo X40 behind me here. They've got a program called WeBuilder for slicing up their G-code. And when you slice a code in there, at the top of the G-code, it has some special M command that's not a standard Marlin code. It's an extension, and it's all hex data. And what that basically is encompassing is an image of the print. So when you load it into the printer, it reads that whole header and says, okay, this is what your print's going to look like. But when you scroll past all that data, the first line you see is semicolon, sliced with Cura engine. So they are using a version of Cura engine, and they've just added some features on top of it. So when I slice it up in Prusa Slicer for this machine, with all the standard dual nozzle codes and all that, if I put it into the printer, it tells me no image, it doesn't tell me any fan speeds or anything, but it prints exactly the same. And that's what I want to get, in your heads, is that there's no such thing as incompatibility in the 3D printer realm, with the exception of those certain vendors that are, quite frankly, being put out of business because of it. You can use any slicer you want, and even, for example, the WeBuilder, you can see what their start and end G code is, and you can copy and paste that verbatim right into your start and end G code in Cura, Prusa Slicer, Idea Maker, whatever you want. And it's all about experimentation. If you're ever worried about it, put a small cube on a card, throw it in the machine, and see what it does. You're not going to be disappointed.
Now, we are coming to a quick end, so before I answer this question from Phil Tucker, I want to let you guys know that this week we are starting our Voron build. We're going to start with frame. We're going to go buy the book or the Voron assembly manual, which comes with all of the details when you download it. The Voron, just for anybody who doesn't know what a Voron is, it is a true Core XY machine that not only is fully enclosed, but it's modular in the fact that there are 3 different mounts that you can use for different hot ends. It can do speeds I've seen up to 300 millimeters per second in terms of printing.
Radmaster, it's going to be the 2.4.
Yeah, it'll be the 2.4.
Yeah, we like the zeros and everything, and I am going to build one of those, but we want to start out with something that's practical for our day-to-day there. Really, the only delay on it so far has been logistics of sourcing parts up here in Canada, and so we are hoping to share those relationships with you guys to make it a little bit easier to get the parts, because it's terrible up here. I won't lie to you guys. Last week I went and tried to get an estimate for 1,000 M3 bolts from China, and the parts were like 20 or 30 bucks. It wasn't too bad, but the shipping was 150 bucks US. So we're doing a lot more domestic sourcing this time around.
Now, the other thing about the Voron is that it doesn't have a huge build volume. You'll notice with the Ender, or not the Enders, but the Creality CR-10s, the Bluer Plus, the Mingda D3, and Rock 3, they all have a 300 by 300 by 400 build volume. The Voron only has a 300 cubed build volume. So that's not to say that you can't do big stuff on it.
So where it comes down to is Richard's going to build an in-spec unit, and I am going to be pushing the limits, okay? And I'm going to see how far we can take this design.
Hey, we got a super chat from Phil Tucker. Thank you very much.
Super chat.
There we go.
Super chat.
All right, so we got Phil Tucker's question up here. He says, "Hi guys, I'm in the UK. Keep up the great work. I have Ender 3 Pro 4.2.7 board and direct drive and BL Touch. My problem is it won't store my changes, i.e. Z settings. Are you storing the changes after you've made them with the little store command that is in the menu system? If you're not, it's not going to store them. Now, if you're baby stepping, the problem with baby stepping on the Enders is, for whatever reason, they don't like to register that change. Something in the firmware.
Baby stepping is not stored to EEPROM ever. It's only the Z offsets. So if you go into that config advanced, you can actually combine baby stepping and your Z probe offset just to alleviate that. But I won't lie to you, when it comes to leveling a bed, I don't think I've ever successfully had my bed mesh remember across power cycles. I don't know what it is about EEPROM settings, but if you go and run a G29, go and do that store settings. G29 will not save it to memory. G28, in fact, nothing really in Marlin will save to memory unless you commit it to that setting. And it's designed so that you can muck around with all the settings and then reset your printer and you're back to your known fail-safes, if you will.
Correct. So I hope that answered your question, Phil. Jerry, have you got another?
Nope.
Nope. No more questions.
Any emails?
And no more emails. Well, we have the one from 3D Jeff, but we have to go through that.
Yeah. Well, Mac CJ12345 here was just saying there's firmware out there that adds all the features back. It's called EXT-UI Ender 3 V2 firmware. I use it. That's really cool, man. I won't lie to you. I have no Ender 3 V2s, and all of my machines are dated, if you will, enough to be using the TFT screens. So I had avoided that area for a long time, and it actually wasn't until the Crealities came to the market that people started open sourcing these menu designs. And I think this is where we're going to start seeing finally moving away from these guys here. That firmware is great. Thank you so much for linking that. I'm going to look it up and just do some reading into it. But I have
I'd like to know a little bit more about that too.
I mean, that being said, these Big Tree ones, the reason I like these is because they're dual mode. So if you have one of these, you can get into the emulation mode, which says LCD, whatever emulator at the top. But if you hold down this button here for 3 seconds, it'll pop up and it'll give you 2 icons, Marlin mode and then the other mode there. And it becomes a touch screen at that point. And you can actually touch the menus, click around, play with all the features, and you can still cycle between the 2 modes, though it's a little shot in the dark, to be honest. But, with these new screens coming out, for instance, this one has a header for a Wi-Fi module, so you can actually set up some Wi-Fi printing. And, it just kind of works for these features. Even when you're in the emulation mode, you can actually tap the screen in lieu of pressing down on this button, which is good for wear cycles. So, these new screens coming out are great, and I like the open source firmware, but we'll see what comes in the future, frankly. Who knows? Maybe eventually we're going to get a Clipper screen.
You never know.
Sure it's going to happen, yeah.
All right, so we have got a question here, or actually a statement more than anything. Radmaster, he says, where'd you get the parts for the Voron build? I was looking at a kit from Formbot. Formbot, you can buy a kit from them. You can buy a kit on AliExpress, which a lot of people do. Now, you got to understand that the Voron is not a commercially available kit. Anytime you buy a kit from anybody, they're sourcing the parts and putting that kit together. Now, we've sourced our parts domestically. We have some coming in domestically. We have a number of parts coming in from China, which is a lot of our boards. I believe I've got the 1.3, and I just found today I have a 1.4 board, and you need 2 boards and a Raspberry Pi in the unit because it runs Clipper, and we're going to be talking a lot about Clipper as we get closer to that. But as far as the Voron goes, we've been sourcing our parts wherever we can get them the cheapest. Buying a kit's nice and convenient, but you're paying that premium price. So just bear in mind.
Yeah, and with that too, I'm going to share this up on my screen here because, in the sake of being open about this, guys. So on their website, they have a sourcing guide, and it provides you all the different parts that they're talking about and their quantities that you need. And it actually gives you recommended and alternative sources. And, the nice thing is this developer, as I said, he's not charging anything for this. But that being said, some of these are affiliate links, and you can actually help out the project by clicking on the affiliate link and, sourcing from the same locations. There was things in here we had, let's see, if we go down to the electronics, Meanwell, Stepper Online, DigiKey, and as I said, they have affiliate links that you can give them a few bucks that way. But I would probably recommend sourcing most of this through the recommended sources, like getting things through Misumi, which is who
we got our rails from.
Yeah, we got all of our rails from there. They recommend the Kinovo heaters, which are very good brand name ones. It's not a cheap project, I won't lie to you, but you're getting good quality products, and at least you're getting the same ones that they used when they designed it. And this especially comes down to when we were talking about the mechanical parts. We're going to be talking about this as we go through the build here, but any of the rails, any like the linear rails, your extrusion, we're going to highly recommend getting those domestically because of the better quality control on it. You cannot afford with this design to go with something cheaper unless you're basically willing to build a CR-10 with a few optimizations, if you will. This is designed to rip at high speeds with no vibration.
Jerry, can you bring up that question from Phil Tucker, please? There we go. Phil saying, after I've done the Z offset and store the settings, stays, but if I turn off the E3 Pro, the power, and then power it back on, the setting is gone.
I think I know that one. If you're using an E3 dip board or any of the STM32 based boards, there can be some bugs with the EEPROM sometimes and how they implemented it. So if you flashed new firmware recently, I 100% recommend go into that setting and restore fail-safe defaults in the EEPROM settings there. do the restore fail safes, then save that back to memory, power cycle the unit and make sure it's showing those original values, and then do your Z offsets again. There is something funny about the handling of the EEPROM chip on those ones, and I did find that a few times where it didn't write anything because the EEPROM was actually technically corrupted. So the restore failsafe erases everything in there, or at least it restores it back to the runtime, and you can also just clear the EEPROM, but yeah, it does need a full refresh, it sounds like.
The other part of that, too, is that sometimes it's not storing it into its storable long-term memory or onto that EEPROM. It's just storing it into the RAM on that board. And if it stores it into that RAM so that it can use it, as long as it's on, it's going to be there. As soon as you turn it off, random access memory is gone. It's totally wiped. So
yeah, it's the EEPROMs have been a long issue with manufacturers because they try to cheap out, not buy a WinBond chip or anything like that, right? And it does happen with EEPROM corruption. And one thing I've always wanted in Marlin is every time give you a flag that when you flash a new firmware, tell it to also on a first boot erase the EEPROM chip and save in a fresh batch. Because it just doesn't seem to be doing that.
Yes. Just,
so
let me delete
hopefully that does fix it for you. I'm sorry I'm not giving a very black and white yes is guaranteed will fix it, but there, the problem is as all these new chips come on the market and all these new HALs are being implemented, there's a lot more one-off scenarios that aren't being tested by every single user out there, and that's the challenge with Marlin.
Jeff saying, he says, I remember the day when you could pay a super chat with Google Play balance. What the hell? Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, they've been changing up the whole thing because I think it has something to do with taxation and Google Play credits, but I don't know. Go buy some movies tonight.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Here's the question.
Okay, 3D HD1 Creality 3 glass bed warped. Correct by flipping over glass bed, preheat bed for 1 hour, cool down, flip back over, and it fixed it. All right.
Do you have soft glass or something? That's weird.
That's very strange.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot off camera about beds and warping and stuff lately between myself, Richard, and our other buddy Dave, who does a lot of CNC work. And there's a difference between cast aluminum and rolled aluminum and all that. Yeah. And the fact is, a lot of these products that are coming in, if we were to get a properly casted bed where we actually melted aluminum into a mold, it's going to cost, hundreds upon hundreds of dollars, and it's worth every dime. But, it's a very large expense to take on, right? So a lot of companies are supposed to get you rolled aluminum that has been flattened in some form or another, and we found with a lot of these printers, they hadn't. Now, one thing I learned the other night was the properties of the metal impact it too. So especially when you get to like silicon heaters and stuff, if you heat up aluminum incorrectly or at the wrong balance, you're going to get natural bowing as the metal contracts and swells, basically based off the temperature differences. And that's why you actually want to probe your bed once it's heated up, because the properties changed. Now, as for the glass, it actually sounds to me like your problem's with your bed and not with the glass, because glass shouldn't ever bow. In fact, it should break before it bows. That's the nature of glass, unless it's super, super thin. But when you're dealing with those big sheets, they're
borosilicate should be flat. Now, that being said, not all glass is completely flat. If you use a mirror over glass, you are guaranteed to have a perfectly flat surface. The other benefit to using a mirror is that it has that metallized coating on the back, which gives you the reflective nature of a mirror. That will heat up a lot more evenly across the surface of the glass in the mirror, and you will get a much better print.
Yes, absolutely. And
I don't buy the Creality glass because I don't like it.
No, borosilicate glass by itself is usually recommended because it's not it's safety glass, it fractures differently and all that, and it's supposed to retain shape better. But when it comes to a mirror, they simply can't sell you a mirror with bent glass because you're going to get a funhouse effect with your mirrors. So
correct.
By design, they're going to be extremely flat to begin with. It's just that you have to be aware they're very sharp, and then when they break, you have to handle it safely. But that being said, because mirrors are so commonly available, and most of the printers we need them for are 300 by 300, which is about 12 inch by 12 inch, you can go to IKEA, you can go to Home Depot, and everybody makes
a 12-inch piece of glass.
Yeah, and it's fairly common. I did run it for a long time. I personally didn't like mirrors so much. I actually went to the PEI flex sheets. But again, with those, you need to have an ABL system, or you need to have a very flat surface to begin with. So as we go through this Voron series, we're going to discuss all these little challenges we've come across. It's going to be a very detailed series because, you know, let's be honest, if the Voron was the end-all be-all printer, then somebody would be mass manufacturing by this point. So
correct.
We've got a lot of learnings. We're going to share them with you so that hopefully it's not as expensive for you.
Well, at the end of the day, I figure retail, based on the price that you're paying for all of the parts, you're going to come in at around $700 or $800, to be perfectly honest with you.
And you should be looking at this machine as a direct competition to something like a Prusa system. The engineering that went into the design for it is huge. It is amazing, and quite frankly, I'm surprised it's coming in as cheap as it is. So thank you to that team for doing your engineering work. You know,
they did a great job.
I'm not an engineer by trade or anything like that, so I'm happy when someone says, you know what, we just know this is going to work, just follow our guide. But of course, me being me, you know, don't do what Brian does. I'm going to break all those rules, and we're going to build something stupidly big that's probably going to look like something in the Beverly Hillbillies, you know?
Well, we're going to start with a standard spec machine. We're going to do the Voron 300. We could have done the 250 or the 350, but I think the 300 is going to be just fine. So we'll do that one as well.
Size. You know, a 350 is an awkward size and that's one of the things we're going to talk about is, you know, think about when you're going to build this machine about standard sized parts so you don't have to go and build customized everything.
Yeah. So Pixel says, I'm using the original build plate surface that I've never had an issue other than the easy of removing parts. I'm upgrading to a flexible removable build plate. Worth it? Yes.
Yeah, it is.
I do think that they are worth it. He also says here that he's using a TiVo Tornado just for our benefit.
I think our other CR-10 build size, it's been a while, but I think it's a 310 by 310.
So you can have one of these, which is just a mat, like a build tack type surface with a magnet on the back. I hate these. I absolutely hate these. I think they're garbage. They're made as a consumable, so to be perfectly honest with you, they don't ever line up correctly. I think that if you're going to go the build plate route and you want a flexible, get a spring steel build plate with PEI on one side and a textured medium on the other, then you'll be able to print a variety of different materials.
So I wanted to show you guys this for spring steel. I've got a failed print here that I just pulled off my CR-10, and I was going to pull it over here to show you guys popping off the plate, but guess what? It just comes cleanly off the plate when it's cooled down, okay? So this is why spring steel is nice. So it's a more rigid sheet. This is the energetic ones I've talked about several times before. It's more robust than the ones Richard was showing there. You know, you can flex it, and you can hear that nice, beautiful metal wiggle there. But yeah, they stick, like all the prints, because of the rough surface there. PLA especially sticks right to it. And as long as you keep that bed warm, it's going to stick to it. But as soon as it starts to cool down, yeah, it softens right up and falls right off. You can almost even have one of those mechanisms to punch your print off and print the next one, if you're okay with the heat and cool cycles there. But yeah, these spring steel sheets, every machine, every one of my machines is going to these.
Bear in mind that when you are dealing with these types of things, the magnets that are on the, I get it into screen here, the magnets that are on the beds now, they are not designed to go over 80 degrees. So what you want to do is, if you're going to go to that spring steel sheet and you want to print higher temperature materials, you're going to need to have to either use bowl clips, which I had a whole bunch around here, but now I can't find. Oh, here's one. So you're going to have to use clips like this. or you're going to have a stronger magnet that has some heat-resistant properties, and there are magnets out there that you can get. They're fairly expensive, but this has always been the tried and true for me, just using these little bull clips. They'll clip right on and you have no problem with them.
Yeah, the clips work fine. I'm actually considering putting a couple of neodymium magnets in amongst the bigger one, right? So 5 of them. I mean, I don't have my baggie here of them. I picked up a bunch on Amazon super cheap. They are cheaper than sin right now. You could just glue a couple of those, cut out some holes in the magnet, put those in there, and then it gives you that little extra rigidity. It's just going to require a bit more effort to pull it off after the fact.
So Jeff's asking here, he says, so when using a magnetic bed and a flex plate, should you still use a mirror between the bed and the magnet? No.
No. You
don't do that.
So talking just briefly here about heat, you want to have as little between your print and the bottom of that bed as possible. So the more material you add, the more it has to radiate upwards, and then you have to deal with temperature offsets. We're going to be talking about that again in the future as well here.
So Pixel, thank you very much for the super chat. It is always appreciated. It goes a long way to helping us get new materials and do builds.
And, we do like to give detailed answers to you guys, and part of that, the big thing you can do to help us is send your questions to questions@thefirstlayer.com so that we can pre-investigate it and not just be kind of winging it on the spot, frankly. So
the one we just got from 3D Jeff. We're going to take a look at that, and we are going to get you an answer, Jeff, so don't worry about that.
Brilliant. Well, my goodness.
Wow.
Time flies, eh?
Yeah, it's 3:06. We're at the end of our show.
It's still snowing here.
Those questions that we didn't get to answer today, we're sorry. Hold on to them, or you can send them to, let's just put this up. You can send them to questions@thefirstlayer.com. And we will definitely get a look at it. And if it's something that has to be investigated by Brian and I, we will put our collective brains together and find you a good solution. All right, so let's go back to that. Brian's got a busy week. I got a busy week. I've got more printers than I know what to do with. Radmaster, thank you very much for the super chat. Do really appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And I always say this, if you're going to send a super chat, you might as well throw a question out there sometimes.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I always feel like a charity case.
Now, we have most all of our parts printed in this bag. You can see we're going with a black
and Linus dropping it.
Yeah, you can see we're going with a black and white theme on our first Voron. And we are going to start with building the frame. Once all the parts get here, that will be our big project starting next week. So on Friday for our members, and I promise I will not forget to upload a video this week.
You know we're not going to forget about either, and I'm going to tell you this now. I'd rather have it on Thursday because I realize I have an engagement. Our member hangout.
Oh yeah, we have a member hangout coming this week.
Yes, we are doing a member hangout this week. So for those of you, what levels was it again? I can't remember.
It's all of our members.
All the members, yeah.
All
so
the
even
members.
At the $1.99 level or whatever.
Yeah, even at the $1.99 level.
We're going to be sending out an invite to all those members, so be sure you are subscribed as a member so you don't miss that. And we're going to do a couple hours, maybe Thursday night there, just hanging around. We can stream it, or we don't have to if you want to have a dirty chat, First Layer After Dark.
Yeah, if you want to have a dirty chat, we can have a dirty chat.
Yeah, we just kind of hang around and work on projects and talk one-on-one about your machines and all that. So, that's one of the benefits of being a member on this channel. Yeah, Henry, I'm telling you now because I know we keep on, it's like last minute we tell you. So, yes, this Thursday, sometime in the evening there, just watch for the message.
Yeah, we will we'll get that out to everybody. So Thursday evening, we are having a live chat for our members. If you're not a member and you want to support the show on a monthly basis and become a member, you can just hit that little join button, which is down below this video, and that will take you into our area. It doesn't matter if you're at $1.99 or you're all the way up to our top layer. there's a little something in there for everybody. Those of you that are at the top layer, we have 3 people there. I am going to get you a code for t-shirts, so you get 10% off whenever you purchase. If you're in the States or overseas, I will get you the code to Teespring, which we have our hoodies and stuff on. And for those of you in Canada, you can just contact me and I will get you a proper code for our shop, thefirstlayer.com website.
And speaking of things that we have to remember to do, we forgot to talk about something today real quick.
What?
Matter 3D news.
Oh, yes! Matter 3D
colors
news
coming. Yeah, we've been so busy this hour here. Matter 3D, effectively tonight/tomorrow, we'll see when it comes through. Blue PLA, red PLA, gray PLA, white, black, and transparent is going to be all the color offerings. So if you haven't seen the photos on our group, Amin has been posting as they produce these new. They are vibrant. I can't wait to get my hands on the red and the blue myself. But keep an eye on the website and watch for it to go live. And I think our code is still working there. TFL10 gets you 10% off your entire order. No minimum quantity there. So it's going to knock a few bucks off those PLA prices for you. And there's now a local shipping option for if you're in the Calgary area there. We are working to get the filament more out here so that you can get it delivered basically to your door, probably by Richard, actually.
Calgary, Okotoks, and Airdrie.
Yeah, I'm going to try and keep a little bit of warehousing down here so that people don't have to cross the city to get filament. But we're getting those details ironed out. But yes, filament, new colors on the way, and I can't wait to do some prints with it soon. Here.
I'm excited about the new colors because I've got some stuff I want to print. Those colors will also later be available in ABS. Just so you guys know.
What, that really got me excited because I didn't realize it till the other day how limited we are for color options on ABS.
Yeah.
It's just something you don't think about because you're like, oh, ABS, industrial, so black, gray, white, transparent.
Yep.
No, I'm actually really curious to see what these colors come out for ABS.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it. So until we see you guys next time, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. See you later. Bye, Brian.
Bye for now.
Bye, Brian.
Bye, Jerry.
Good night, John Boy.